So in this video of the course, we are going to be discussing whether you should go the niche store route or the general store route. And yes, there are big differences when it comes to both. We're going to be covering the pros and cons of both, and I'll be at the very end telling you guys exactly what I personally believe you should be doing, especially if you really have no idea about how Google Ads works, or you might be more of a beginner. And I'll be explaining exactly which way you should be going. But let's just get right into it. So, of course, like anything else out there in the world, there are pros and cons for both running niche stores or general stores. Neither of them has just all good and neither of them has all just bad. There are equal proportions which would make you want to choose one over the other depending on your current situation and depending on where you are right now. For this Google Ads course and what I've personally done with my own experience running both niche stores and general stores, I'll be sort of giving a breakdown on how each works and what you can find more success with if you plan to use 99% Google Ads. Of course, if you really want to go the brand building route and just focus on one over the other and maybe have other advertising platforms in play and sort of go and stop drop shipping later on, there is going to be one of these which should be the better option for you in the long run. But let's start off by talking about niche. Exactly what are the pros of running a niche store? There are various different pros. Some of them include narrowed down audience size, powerful data, and so forth. First one, narrowed down audience size. What do I mean by this exactly? When you are within a niche, if you chose a specific niche within an overall category, you're going to be very specific, you're going to be very narrow towards that audience. So for instance, if you're in the dog lovers niche and you're selling dog products, obviously you're going to be only targeting dog lovers or dog owners. You will not be targeting anything else that stands outside of that niche. That is why you become much more narrow rather than have just a general pool of people that you want to target. And this can really turn out to be a big pro for you because down the road, when you start branding that product, you will know exactly what people interact with your ads, what kind of people buy your products and so forth, and these are of course gonna be dog lovers. So that means it becomes much easier for you to design a website, have certain words which describe these dog lovers, set up your back end and so forth all around this specific niche and this specific audience. So it becomes extremely easy to brand this niche store. It's not so easy with general stores, but in addition, because you are so narrowed, because you are within one category amongst the entire general pool, you have much more powerful data. This data you can then use to go out and find more dog lovers which are basically related to your dog loving audience. So this becomes extremely important when you try to scale on Google Ads. Even if you try to use other advertising platforms, as long as you have a pixel installed, it is going to have a lot of powerful data. You're going to be able to use whatever data you have previously gathered on these new advertising platforms. Your lookalike audiences, retargeting audiences will be much more adept at getting you sales and increasing your overall revenue. So it brings about really a lot of powerful data. In addition, you have the ability to create a very strong backend because of course with a general store, your emails are going to be all over the place in case you decide to send emails, but with a narrowed down specific niche such as the dog lovers, you'll know exactly what kind of things these dog lovers love. You can send them posts regarding how to take care of their dog, how to train their dog and so forth, and everything is just going to be much more aligned and much more directed when it comes to email flows. This in turn will get you a higher conversion rate via emails. You'll have much more sales coming in through email, so it really brings about a stronger backend as well. Plus, these people, if you really establish a strong brand connection, if you ship on time, it's going to be easier for them and for you to establish greater trust amongst each other. Compare this dog loving store to just a random general store that these people come about on Google Ads or any other advertising platform. They find the dog product that they wanted, but they find home and garden products, they find cat lover products, they find donkey lover products, and there's just so many different collections that these people can go to that they kind of don't even establish themselves as a potential future customer with this website, simply because they realize that this website is all over the place. They're not really directed. There is no kind of additional value this customer can get from your website besides a product. Compare that to a niche store where this customer can now read a blog post about how to train their dogs, or they can get an email about all of the cool tricks certain dog breeds which they possibly own can do, and these things just establish that connection that you need to have a long-term loyal customer, because in the end, brands and niche stores use a lot of loyal long-term customers. If you want to go the brand building route, this is definitely the way to go. So this is again going to be a benefit for you if you do run with a niche store. In addition, there's going to be higher conversion rates, which will lead you to run this business long term, because I've personally noticed with my own experience, niche stores have some of the highest conversion rates, anywhere from 3% to 5%, even more compared to general stores, which is much lower. And it's very obvious because this niche store is literally revolving around that person that's on your website right now looking for that dog collar. And if they buy that dog collar from you, they like it, and their dog actually wears it all of the time, now they'll be back on your website shopping it for maybe a dog toy or a dog shirt or whatever that they want to purchase related to dogs. And this again leads to a lot of long-term potential for your website. You never could really run out of ideas or products to sell your customers when you're in a specific niche. However, while there are a lot of good things that come with niches, there are certain bad things, and here's exactly what they are. First one is limited product selection. As many dog related categories there are out there in the world, at some point if you add every single product out there that is dog related, you will reach a maximum. After that, it is going to be extremely difficult for you to continue adding more dog related products. And this is one of the biggest drawbacks of running a niche store. You just have limited product selection. You can't keep on adding new products one after the other consistently and long term. There is going to be a market cap that you reach. And this also brings me to the actual search volume related to your niches. There is going to be a maximum search cap, which you of course reach at the very end once you realize that dog collars has a maximum of 100,000 monthly searches. It really doesn't go above that in any given month. It has never done that in the past 5 years. At that point, you realize that this market cap for the dog collars, which I'm selling and which my store revolves around, is never going to cross 100,000 monthly searches. That means my overall sales are gonna come from this pool of 100,000 monthly searches. It doesn't really have this potential to be scaled upwards to maybe 1 million monthly searches, 2 million, 10 million, and so forth. So this really brings about that maximum search cap that you don't want to limit you, but niche stores, you don't really have a choice. Next thing is scalability issues. Because you're already limited with products, you already have a limited maximum search cap. What's gonna happen is that you're gonna find it very difficult to continue scaling that store upwards, especially once you reach either of these milestones right here. And that means you might be stuck on a given sale per day volume every single day, or your sales might even start to drop in case your winning products start to die out. And this happens of course in any given niche with any given product. No product can go on forever. So with the niche store like this, if it happens, your entire store sales start to diminish. And if you don't really have more products to back up those sales, then you're in a very tight position. So scalability issues are very common with niche stores. This is why a lot of niche stores go out of business. But in addition, if you already have a bunch of other niche stores within that given market already crushing it, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to get the audience within that search volume regardless of how hard you try. For instance, with the dog lovers niche, there's already big stores out there such as Petco, PetSmart.com, and so forth, which already get a large audience coming to their stores. So if you happen to compete with them, obviously they have a much bigger budget than you. Obviously they have more marketing strategies compared to you. And that is going to be extremely difficult for you to come in and steal those sales, which is what we want to do with these bigger niche websites. So this kind of adds on to the scalability issues. You might get stuck competing with these people, and they might in the end just end up smarting you and having a higher budget, bidding more and so forth, and then taking you out of business completely. In addition, with niche stores, the hardest part is actually choosing that niche. A lot of people go with the niche that they personally believe is going to work or they personally have experience with. So just because you love to go hiking does not mean you should start a hiking store. There's again a lot of things you have to look into before deciding a niche, and if you have no experience with that given niche, if you have no experience selling stuff online or have any kinds of winning products within that niche, it becomes extremely difficult for you to choose the right niche. And this brings me to the final point, which is seasonability. I've had a lot of issues with my own niche stores when it comes to seasonability, and this is one of the biggest problems you have running a niche store. I've had this consecutively year over year with one of my main niche stores, and sales drastically plummet after that given season. And this just means you're left out with little to no sales and little to no profits, and it can become very difficult to get by during those months. So you need to have backup niche stores in that case, or simply choose a niche which is really not that seasonal. But of course, if you have no experience, it becomes extremely hard to choose. So these are the pros and cons of running a niche store. Of course, you want to kind of take these into account before deciding whether you want to go with a niche store or with a general store, which we're going to cover right now. So with the general store, as with niche store, there are pros and cons. Here are some of the pros. First one is unlimited product selection. Obviously very straightforward and very easy to guess. Because you're running a general store, you are not limited to one specific collection. You're not limited to one specific niche. So you can go out and add literally whatever you want. Just like Amazon does, you can have a home and garden collection, you can have a pet collection, a baby collection, and so forth. This means you have an unlimited product selection ability. You are never going to run out of products, which is something I really like about general stores. In addition, you have a wider range of customers. So unlike niche stores, you don't really have to cater to just one audience. You can keep things very general and still end up appeasing all of these different audiences out there. And this can really work for your benefit, especially if you're within a niche where you have little to no idea what those people prefer, what kind of words they use, and so forth. So just keeping it general and wide is definitely going to help you, and this is one pro with a general store. In addition, you have a wider range of winners, meaning you have a wider range of winning products within given niches. Unlike a niche store where you just have to stick to one niche, now with a general store, you can find winning products within multiple different niches. Let's say you have 10 products selling well within the baby niche. Now you know that you can go ahead and create a baby niche store and add those 10 products and some more products related to those, simply because you have already found a lot of winning products within the baby niche. You have already kind of done the pre-selling. You already know this niche works, which can work to your benefit significantly. So that is one way to go. First of all, start with a general store, then find winning products, and then narrow down based on that. In addition, general stores are much easier to scale. Again, as I said before, with a niche store, once you run out of products, once you run out of techniques to increase your market cap or search cap, you're basically in for a big ride downwards. With a general store, if one product stops selling, two products stop selling, it doesn't really matter because you have 10 other products selling every single day. Your sales might fluctuate up and down a bit, but it is not going to kill you overnight as it could with the niche store. In addition, there's greater customizability with general stores compared to a niche store, because you can't really customize a niche store as much, because after a while your audience may stop interacting with the customizations you just did. They may not really like the changes you did, and they may stop buying from you completely or going on your website. With the general store, you can do literally whatever you want, and you'll still end up appeasing a large portion of the audience, because you're going to have so many different kinds of people with different kinds of interests, age groups, and so forth visiting your website and buying from you. So you have the ability to customize as much as possible. In addition, a general store is much easier to replace compared to a niche store. With a niche store, it takes days, months, years even to establish a real brand identity. With a general store, if it stops working, you can just start another general store and start basically where you left off with the same kinds of products. In addition, this basically makes the general store evergreen, because as long as you continue adding different products, you are never going to run out of ideas, you're never going to run out of sales, and you're going to have a consistent business. I don't know about you, but this is what I would prefer over a niche store, which is basically seasonal, which sells in a few given months and then stops selling the rest of the month, or have to deal with product issues and not having enough products to sell. But that is pretty much it for the pros of general stores. Of course, just like a niche store, there are some cons with general stores, and here's exactly what they are. First thing is, you're going to have a weaker back end, because as I said already, since you have so many different kinds of customers, since you have so many different kinds of products, you can't really hone in and go narrow with a specific type of backend. And this means your email flows suffer greatly, your SMS marketing flows suffer greatly, and you can't really establish a lot in sales from the backend. Now, this does not mean that it is still impossible to get a good amount. I routinely get around 10% to 20% return on revenue from emails only, but that is only after you have been running the store for a while. You know exactly what is working, and you continuously test different things. But in general, you can expect a weaker backend. In addition, I've noticed really low conversion rates with general stores compared to a niche store, because again, a niche store caters to a specific audience to the T, while a general store is, of course, very general. In addition, you can have long-term branding issues. Unless you have plans of doing what Amazon did, it is going to be a little bit extra difficult for you to kind of brand that general store. This does not mean that it cannot be done. However, it's just going to be a bit more difficult and require more work than it would with a niche store. And in addition, you can have weaker data, weaker pixels, because your audience is all over the place. It has all kinds of interests and so forth. So it might not really be ideal for you to be using those lookalike audiences and so forth to get those extra sales. But in addition, finally, you're gonna have a lower number of returning customers, because of course, you're not really catering to one specific audience. You're all over the place. People like it when they can basically go inside of one store and get a large variety of products within that niche, rather than have to go and pick things out over a large collection of different items. So of course, this is going to be one big problem with general stores, and you will just have to deal with a lower amount of returning customers. That means you'll have to spend more money on ads consistently. But now that we went over the pros and cons of both, exactly what do I prefer and what do I recommend for you? In my own experience and my own recommendation, I definitely prefer to go the general store route when it comes to Google Ads because the pros outweigh the cons in this case for me. I just prefer to have all of the pros mentioned within the general store compared to a niche store. And in case I want to run a brand, a niche store in the future, I'll use this general store as kind of a testing store to test different products within different collections. Once I find winning products within different collections, I'll make niche stores related to those and then go about branding them. But in the beginning, I really don't want to risk things because I don't have a good idea of what is going to sell, what is not going to sell. And this general store is going to let me test different things out kind of without limiting my ability to find success. So the general store I can use for good cash flow while having enough money to fund the niche store, which I go about branding. So this is what I exactly recommend for this course and just for Google Ads in general.